Hello again, Intro to Art student. One of the things I like to discuss at the beginning of the semester, something that occurred to me a few years ago, is some just plain talk about why we're here. These are things that aren't really discussed much, even in the orientation that you get from the university, but I think that they're important things to say, especially because many of you in this class are freshmen and sophomores. You're just getting started in your college career. So I think it's really important to just name some of these things. For one thing, when we're in class, you're going to be tempted to do things with your smartphone or headphones or other devices, staring at a laptop instead of listening. And for one thing, that's kind of cheating yourself. You paid a lot of money to take this class, and my hope is that you get the most out of it that you possibly can. And as this article suggests, it's from Atlantic Magazine, which is a very reputable source, that there's a correlation, a connection between the amount of time one spends looking at a smartphone and your mental health. In other words, the more time that you spend in the virtual world, the more unhappy you are. That might seem contrary, but there's some good science to back that up. So when we're in class, I will regularly remind you of my policy that there's no cell phone use during class. And I think it's actually a good habit to get into outside of class. Imagine yourself in the future sitting in a meeting. You've been hired to a good job. You are happy that you're working in the career that you trained for, and you sit and look at your phone during an important meeting. What does that say? What is your employer going to think of you? So the things that I'm suggesting that we start doing now as best practices are things that are not only going to help you in college, but after you graduate and you're in the work world. Another piece of data that I like pointing out too is this study that was a collaboration between the New York Times and a couple of reputable universities, saying that taking notes with laptops is actually not very helpful, that you end up being too distracted by the task that you are doing instead of listening to what your professor is saying. So recently I made a policy also of no laptops in class. And there's plenty of evidence that shows that good old manual handwriting, taking notes in class, is actually helping you learn better. It's not distracting like the previous article is suggesting as much. And so here's a good example that I will post on our CourseDen homepage of someone who I think took really good notes. You don't have to write out things longhand. Creating bullets and lists and major talking points is good. This is a really good thing to have on hand when you sit down to take your weekly quiz. You're more than welcome to have notes handy when you do that activity. It also will help you in class when I ask clicker questions. So notes are another thing that I think will be a recipe for your success. One thing too is just asking the question, do you know what a liberal arts university is? I ask that question in class every semester, and maybe one or two people out of 90 know what I'm talking about. You have signed up, are attending a liberal arts university. That's the concept that was created, you see from this image here, in the beginning of the Renaissance period in Europe, of having a place where people go to study a variety of subjects in order to make them a well-rounded person. The word liberal in there doesn't have anything to do with politics. It's a liberal education, studying lots of different subjects. And what that is meant to do is to give you a variety of skills, of understandings about your world, so that when you go out into the work world, you are equipped for a variety of situations. One of the things that I notice in a lot of my classes is that when I'm looking out at you all, I see a number of people who aren't paying a whole lot of attention. And again, I think that's really cheating yourself. You've paid to go to a liberal arts university. exactly half of all the credits that you'll earn at UWG will be taking those various core courses: math, science, public speaking, English composition, all those things that are meant to help you become a well-rounded person. And when I see people not taking that activity seriously, it troubles me, because I think the attitude is often, oh, this isn't the real work, I'm just waiting until I start taking the classes in my major. Well, I'm here to tell you that, a recipe for success for you is going to be getting the most that you can out of your university core classes, and here's some evidence to prove that. So some research is done by a professor suggesting that there's a correlation between having a liberal arts education and a number of very positive outcomes. Things like you being happier with your job, with you being more likely to be in a leadership position, of you earning more than you would from attending a different kind of university. That's a pretty big deal, and getting the most out of the experience that you have at a liberal arts university, being in classes where you are asked critical thinking questions, interacting with your professors. Did most professors know your name? One of the things that I don't like about the big classes that I teach is that I don't get to know everybody's name. That's just the nature of a class that size. But as you start getting into your other classes, you're going to be interacting directly with your professor. And that kind of activity is something that's going to contribute to your success in the future. Another issue that is surprising to a lot of people when I bring it up is this article coming from Time Magazine, and research being done by the Centers for Disease Control right in Atlanta, Georgia, suggesting a number of positive correlations from having a college education, like you will be more healthy. And one of the things that's really remarkable about this data suggests that not only will you live longer, but your parents will live longer. Think about that for a minute. Why is that? Why is you getting a college education going to help your parents live longer? Well, there's a number of things. You earn more money, so you can afford to live in a neighborhood that's not dangerous. You have health insurance through your employer. You understand issues about health, better diet, exercise, not smoking, things like that. And think about this too, that when you were in college, you did a lot of research. You wrote papers, you went out and found information that you were asked to find. So you were developing a skill to go find information. And that skill is something that will serve you well in the world, because you will be able to go out and find information, not for an assignment that a professor gave you or even for an employer, but for things that you want to find out to help you live a better life. So you learn many things in college. You learn lots of skills like research, like how to be a good colleague to the people around you. And that brings up another issue, and that is being collegial when you communicate with people. One of the things that you will see me do in every single email I send you is, I may not use the word dear, but I'll say use your first name or say hi, address your questions, and then put something at the end. I hope that helped, best, something like that, and sign my name. That's a proper email communication. We have a business relationship, and so I act in a collegial and respectful way. This is not what I would consider to be a collegial or respectful communication. The person didn't even bother to write a proper message. They simply put in the subject line, I believe question 2 is wrong. Well, that's not very respectful to me. I'm hesitant to respond to that email, and it's actually not a very good form. Again, putting in something at the beginning, it doesn't have to be much, just saying professor, saying thank you at the end of it goes a long way. And again, this is not just me setting a rule. This is developing a skill that's going to help you when you leave the university and are in the work world, is having knowing the proper decorum for communicating with your colleagues and your superiors. And so, like I said, you're developing a number of skills that are going to serve you well into the future. How to communicate with people through email, time management, learning the skill of getting the work done when it needs to get done, verbal communication skills. You take 2 public speaking classes, just being a nice person. Nobody wants to work with someone who's rude. Just learning to be a decent person when you're in a work environment. Learning the desire to excel at everything you do rather than trying to do the bare minimum and cheat the system. I see a number of students who feel like, if they learn how to play, the situation and get away with something, that they've accomplished something. Well, they actually really haven't. They aren't getting the most out of the situation. They're not cultivating a good relationship. I still am in contact with professors that I had when I was in school 20 years ago, and they've been very, very helpful in helping me and my success. Because why? What have they done for me to help me get where I am now? Well, I cultivated a good relationship with those people 20 years ago and kept in contact with them, and they've provided me with references over the years that have helped me accomplish things that I wouldn't have been able to accomplish. If you are rude to your professors, if you do bad work, we're not required to give you references at all, much less good ones. So doing the very best work that you can, being a nice person, is going to serve you well into the future. So I hope that you'll take this to heart. I hope that you will take each one of, not just mine, but each one of the core courses that you will take very seriously, get the most out of it that you possibly can, and put that tool in your belt, knowing that it's going to be useful to you down the road. Think about this for a second. Do you know for certain what you're going to be doing a year from now? Where you're going to live, what kind of job you're going to have, what's going to be going on in your life? It's impossible to know even a year in advance. So how can you have any idea what your work situation is going to be in 5 years or 10 years? And what kind of skills you're going to need to pull on to be successful? Well, you're banking all of this really great knowledge right now so that you can use it later on. And if you don't take your core courses seriously, you're only robbing yourself. So again, I just really hope that you take that to heart and do the very best work that you can while you're here at UWG.